Alright, we are good to go. What's happening, guys? Welcome to the video. It's Brando Linick here, and if you're watching this video, I really love your question. You're asking how to calculate the startup costs for a small business, and I can definitely help you out with this. There's a lot of different ways to approach this depending on the business model that you're looking to start, but just generically speaking, in general, when it comes to actually calculating the startup costs, alright, without having to go through anything complicated or technical, it really comes out to setting up a game plan, a business plan, looking at the overhead that you're going to have to take on. So looking at, supplies, equipment, employees, how many employees you're going to need, how much are you paying employees on an hourly basis, what are your monthly expenses to operate the business, your electricity, maybe you're dealing with water, alright, what is the rent that you're going to have to pay for your office, or if you're leasing it, or if you bought it, alright, how much are you going to have to pay on a monthly basis for that and towards that, alright, to keep the business afloat and keep it running, and then equipment, supplies, all that stuff, computers, telephones, internet, you name it, all that stuff you got to keep in mind. And of course, it really depends on the business model, but same thing applies. You're looking at equipment, supplies, staff, inventory, a place to operate under, alright, that's your overhead. And when it comes to calculating how much it's going to cost to start up the business, alright, you got to take all that into account, and then you got to take into account your profit margin. And that's the most important part of the business, because the more overhead you have, alright, the more overhead you have, the longer it's going to take for you to get in profit, alright. And you got to keep in mind with your overhead, you got to make enough profit to cover those costs every single month. Alright, you got to cover your operating costs, but not just cover your operating costs for that overhead to pay it off and to run it, alright, but you got to cover it enough to pay yourself, alright, to pay yourself an income where you can do what you want, when you want. And when it comes to this, honestly, the best tip I'd give you, if you don't want to go through, alright, and I want to say if you don't, I want to emphasize that, if you don't want to go through the stress and anxiety of what a lot of people go through when they're trying to calculate the financial startup cost of starting their own small business, where they're looking at dealing with the stress and anxiety of calculating how much equipment and supplies are going to be, without having to go through that stress, if you don't want to do that, and you don't want to go get a loan from the bank or finance, which I wouldn't advise you to do anyway. I wouldn't advise you to get into debt to start a business. I've seen too many people do that and take over 10, 15, 20 years to pay off their debts from that. And like I said, unless you really want to take a long time and you want to go through that process, I wouldn't advise you to do it. And if you don't want to go through it, I want to throw at you a lead here that can save you a lot of time, anxiety, frustration, alright, where it can take your financial planning into a very simple step-by-step process. And the lead I want to throw your way here is actually to look and consider starting an online business, alright. And if you hear me out here for a minute, my experience with this goes back over the last year when I took myself from a traditional business to an online business. I actually came across a person, just an average ordinary person, building a business online. And the cool part was they didn't have the overhead associated with a traditional business where you'd have to fork out tens of thousands of dollars to get it started and to market it. And because they didn't have that upfront overhead, it was attractive to me. And they were traveling, get this, and this person was traveling all around the world. And they're doing so for ridiculous periods of time. We're talking like 6 months at a time, 8 months at a time, and they're doing so because their business was on the internet, alright? It was online, so they could go literally anywhere in the world where there's an internet connection and operate their business. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that leverage that they were creating from that, working very part-time on the internet, it was so attractive to me I had to reach out to them. And I started to model and copy what they're doing. I started to reach out. They luckily reached back to me. I got help from them, and in a period of a couple weeks, not average, not typical results. I'm not guaranteeing you the same results or telling you that the internet is the only way to go when it comes to building a business, but I was able to create a full-time income business, alright, without having that overhead, working very part-time, alright. And if you want to be able to build a business that's highly profitable and highly lucrative, the best thing that you could do is have the least amount of overhead. Alright, have the least amount of overhead and not be limited to a location, not be limited to supplies, to equipment, to employees, alright? And the best thing that you could do to actually avoid all that is tap into an online business model. And because there's so much noise out there on the internet, the best suggestion I would make to you is to look and consider connecting with someone. Connect with someone who's building a business online in a way that can help you get the results that you want. It's exactly what I did, alright? And as simple, as stupid as it sounds, it really does work, alright, if you connect with someone who's willing to connect with you, who's building a business online, who's willing to show you what to do and how to do it to help you get the results that you want. It's the best thing that could save you a lot of frustration, because the internet, when you know what you're doing, with the right guidance and help, you can create a very lucrative business model, and it doesn't have to take you 6 to 12 to 30 years to get into profit, all right? It can take you in a very short period of time to get there, all right? So obviously, like I said, my results are not average, they're not typical, but I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and if you do want to learn more in addition to this video to save you a lot of frustration, aggravation when it comes to, you know, financially planning out and calculating out what equipment supplies you need, if you really want to avoid that and you want to learn how to build a highly lucrative, profitable business on the internet without doing anything technical, without having to create your own products and services, make sure to check out my site, check out how average people are doing it too, just like you. And I'll also introduce you to my good friend and business partner now, who shared this with me going back 13 months ago, and I'll share with you exactly what he shared with me going back then that allowed me to create a full-time income working part-time on the internet. So appreciate you, my friend. I'll see you on the next one, and on the beach to the world. Take care.